Sohini?
Yes, hello.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Sohini, are you here?
Yeah. Shall we start?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
We can
yes.
start.
Okay. So, welcome everyone. Welcome our chairperson and our eminent speakers. We have lined up of two speakers, and thanks to the conveners, Global Authors Publication, and Dynamic Professors for organizing this international webinar on the occasion of the International Working Women's Day. So, before starting the program, I shall introduce everyone first. We have our chairperson, Professor Vibhuti Patel. She is an eminent feminist thinker and former professor, Tata Institute of Social Science, Mumbai, India. We have our welcome address will be given by Esther Fulorancho, Project Manager, Department of Information Technology, Mount Hood Community College, Gresham, Oregon, USA. And we have two lineup of speakers. Our first speaker is Dr. Dilshe Kale, Associate Professor, the School of Foreign Languages, Kutaya Dumlupunar University, Turkey, Europe and Asia. And our second speaker is Dr. Dipikanta Chakraborty, Director, Center for Northeastern Studies and Policy Research, National Law University, Tripura, India. And the presidential address will again be given by the chairperson, Vibhuti Patel Madam. And then we will have our question answer session, and the vote of thanks will be given by the conveners. So, Arijit sir, do you want to say anything?
1 second. Yeah. Vibhuti madam, are you here?
Yes, she is here.
I'm here. Can't you see me? I'm very much here.
Okay.
My camera is also on. Mr. Arijit Chakrabarti, I'm here very much.
Okay, madam. Okay. Then we can start now. Sohini?
Yeah. Madam, I will request you, Professor Vibhuti Patel, to speak a few words. And as you are very experienced in this area, so we are expecting some unconventional definitions as well. I'm very looking forward to your speech.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to greet all of you on the International Women's Day. And this is a very important day for all those who want transformative change in the society. And it has a glorious history. We should remember our foremothers who gave us this day. It was the working class women in 1857 who fought against the exploitative working condition, and they demanded decent work, dignity, and the humane condition of work. So the topics chosen for today's deliberations and the panel discussions, like women's empowerment in the 21st century, progress and challenge, and we can't understand all this without going into the history of last 200 years, where women have fought for their dignity and rights and justice. There can't be any justice in the peace. When we talk about the world peace, peace begins from home. Feminist movement has also given us a slogan, personal is political. So whether it is the invisible labor of women which they do at home, it is directly linked to the social production, economy rest on the shoulder of invisible work that women do. Transforming the household work by changing the gender norms, that is another theme for today's discussion. And also the policy interventions that came from the grounded experiences and the stories of resilience that women have had, and that we inherited from the women in 1910, when it was declared that 8th March should be considered to be Women's Day. And the women have been marching, and this is the most popular song of the 8th March, which is Bread and Roses. And it goes like this: as we go marching, marching in the beauty of the day, a million darkened kitchens, 1,000 mill slots grey, are touched with all radiance that a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing, bread and roses, bread and roses. As we go marching, marching, we battle too for men, for they are women's children, and we mother them again. For man can never be free till our slavery is at an end. Our life shall not be sweated from birth till life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread, but give us roses. As we go marching, marching, unnumbered women dead go crying through our singing their ancient call for bread. Small art and love, beauty and their drudging spirits new. Yet this it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. As we go marching, marching, we bring the greater days. The rising of the women means rising of the race. No more the drudge and idler, tend that toil when one reposes, but a sharing life of life's glory, bread and roses, bread and roses. With this song, I pay my tribute to all the foremothers in different parts of the globe who gave us dignity, progress, empowerment, social justice, and what we have achieved, our generation or your generation has achieved, owes to the sacrifices they were made, whether they were Clara Zetkin or whether Mary John or in our country, Savitribai Phule, Fatima Sheikh, women freedom fighters. We pay our tribute and begin the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, keeping in mind all the sacrifices that our forefathers and foremothers made to give us this beautiful day, and we hope we can also contribute so that the upcoming generations after generations they can get a better living conditions and dignity, equality. So, moving on, I would request Miss Esther Fuloransha to give the welcome address.
Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, Professor Patel, for that introduction. That was really, really good. Thank you so much. So once again, I'll say good morning to everyone here. For everyone here, good morning and good evening. So I am presently in the morning. This is 4 a.m. here, but this is a wonderful opportunity for me to be here. It's a great privilege to meet everyone joining from around the globe. It's my pleasure. It's also with a deep sense of honor that I'm here before you today of this momentous occasion, the International Women's Day. And I think one notable thing for me is that I'm proud to be a woman, by the way. A woman that is breaking all boundaries, a woman that is not limited, regardless of whatever the society calls limitations for women. But I want us to also understand that as we gather virtually, we're transcending different geographical boundaries. As women, we are united by a shared commitment and that shared identification that says that I am a woman. Now, we are here to celebrate the remarkable achievements of women. We're also here to acknowledge the ongoing struggles for gender equality because we realize that it's going to be a never-ending struggle. But we also want to reaffirm our dedication as women to creating a more just and equitable world. Today, the 8th of March, 2025, is actually not just the date on the calendar. It is a powerful reminder of the resilience, the strength, the brilliance that women bring to every facet of life. If you check so many industries, if you check and read so many historical achievements, so many testimonies, you're going to see women in every sphere. That's because we had people that had gone ahead of us, broke the boundaries, and made us realize that nothing is impossible. The International Women's Day for me, and I believe it should be for everyone as well, should be a time to reflect. A time to also honor the trailblazers who paved the way for our progress, and a time to also inspire the future generations. I stand here today because I have women that have inspired me, that have made me who I am today, that have nurtured me, starting from my mother that brought me into this world. Now, from these individuals who fought tirelessly for voting rights, there are a whole lot of countries with a whole lot of restrictions. We have countries that women are not even allowed to vote. Now, for those trailblazers who fought tirelessly for voting rights, to even the scientists who have made groundbreaking discoveries in the world, from even the artists who have enriched our cultural landscape, to the activists who daily and continuously challenge the status quo, women have shaped history, and we will continue to shape both our present and even our future. Now, I really want to appreciate the Global Authors Publication, firstly, to their commitment to fostering knowledge and empowering voices in this generation. And I'm proud to be a part of this. The Global Authors Publication, I know they believe in the power of stories. I know they believe in the power of ideas and also in the power of dialogue. And they have curated this program that brings together esteemed speakers from diverse continents. Each speaker, like the person that gave our introductory address, that was wow, like I said, it offers a unique perspective on the challenges, on the opportunities as well that face women today. So we want to explore the experiences of women across the globe, across different cultures. We are not limited by our cultures. We are not even limited by our the cultures we belong to, the countries we come from. We are not limited. We are women. We have the same gender, and we are created to explore boundaries. We are created to go beyond boundaries, and we are created to break the glass ceilings, regardless of whatever glass ceiling is there, regardless of whatever the industry has created, or regardless of whatever the society has created for us. And I'm also pleased to appreciate the distinguished speakers we're going to be having today. Each and every one of them, they are leaders in their own spheres. They are leaders in their fields, and they're going to be sharing their expertise with us. It is a great privilege to have this technical experts, to have these individuals in the house with us today, and it's something I really, really acknowledge and appreciate. Now, in this digital age, we have the privilege of connecting with individuals from all over the world. Different countries are represented here. Whether you like it or not, I am a woman in IT, by the way, and we are indeed breaking the glass ceilings. We're indeed breaking beyond boundaries. Regardless, maybe there was a time that it was like, will women ever be in the field of IT? Well, we are, and we're doing great and mighty things. One of these is the ability to even have a virtual meeting, by the way. We have different platforms that have made this available. But despite the distance that separates us, we are united by a common purpose. We are building a world where every woman and every girl has the opportunity to thrive. Let us embrace the opportunity to learn from each other, to inspire each other, and to forge lasting connections that will strengthen our collective efforts. Once again, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I hope we have a great time here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, and good morning to Mr. Ma'am. And you have given a very encouraging speech to all of us. So, just adding to one more point to Madam, that now UN has recognized this day as International Women's Day. Before that, it was International Working Women's Day. The motto of UN was to make it an umbrella term and also include all the marginalized genders that we study in general. So not about only the women, but all the marginalized genders or the sections of the society, those who are getting very difficult in the workplace or in marketplace. So it's also their struggle, their cry for rights as well. And I'm very thankful to our conveners and co-conveners for giving us this safe
হ্যালো ম্যাডাম,
to
আপনার কি গুগল মিট আছে ইনস্টল করা?
Arijit, sir, can you please mute yourself?
তাহলে ওই লিংকটার মধ্যে ক্লিক করলেই হবে।
Arijit sir, thank you. So giving us this safe space where we can also not only talk about the achievements, struggles, but also come with the hidden not only traumas or anything that we have faced in our personal or public life. So thank you once again, Esther Madam. And coming to Arijit sir, you can start with your inaugural speech. Sir, are you there? Yes.
Hello. Good evening, everyone from India, and good morning for America and other continents. Europe, I think, is evening, I think. in Europe.
Not evening, it will be afternoon.
Afternoon, and I mean in Africa, I think maybe evening or afternoon, maybe. Okay. So we are here to discuss about the Women Day, celebrate the International Women Day. Actually, I try to say something about the UN report. In the UN report, women's condition in the globe not that much good as per the estimate of UN. According to the UN and the report of 2023, 612 million women live in 50 kilometer around the war zone and arm conflicted areas. Is very critical for women's situation, and there are so many issues like climate changes and other problem issues. Those are mainly impact the woman livelihood, and the weaker democratic institution also issue in this case, in the woman's case. The weakening the democratic institution has gone hand in hand with backlash on gender equality, is the quotation of UN. And we think about the gender equality and other parliamentarian participation. Only 25% participation in the parliament. Various in the world parliaments is very in the sense of number, it's very less. If you think about the Africa and other continents as well as Asia, the number is less than 25. It's a very big issue. Another one is social protection benefit. Mainly the economist says that we are going for the market economy, but presently market economy don't have that much power to facilitate the females as per the requirements. That's the reason government should declare some social schemes and social protection benefit to the marginalized sections like women, children, and other backward classes. And this is one big issue, is that sexual harassment and sexual violence. As per the UN report, 95% of women are harassed and bullying in the virtual platform. This is the big issue, because 92%, 95% is a big percentage. Only few that means 7%, 5% is left. Most of the people are bullying in the virtual section, virtual platform. This is the main problems as per the estimate of UNO, is especially 2023 and 24. And they suggest some five steps, and one is empowering women small holders. That means UN try to push up the women to enter in the small scale businesses, because it's very important for financial literacy and self-reliance. And another one is support women leadership, and another one is support women funding women organization. It's also a very important issue, because as per the estimate of UNO, women get less funding than the male. and we should, and government and various government and non-state actors also increase their fund to the women related organization. And last one is health. Women health is deteriorating day by day because of various issues that in India I can say that about say about the diabetes, and most of the women affected by the diabetes and various other issues, spondylitis, cyst, and various issues. So government should focus on female related disease also, because without health women cannot progress in the competitive market, in especially the market economy, because market is expanding day by day. Women should find their place in market economy also, as well as in the capitalist market. So this is my last and small introductory speech, and I wish to listen more words and valuable thoughts from our distinguished speaker guest. Thank you from my side.
Thank you, Arijit sir. You have pointed out all the problems, all the gendered problems that the state should look into, starting from gendered health issue, gendered harassment. I think these are all gendered employment. These are all something which is directly connected to the gender of the society. Means the men, women, and the other genders have different different journey to this political sphere or the public sphere or the health sphere, the policies that I was reading few papers few days ago. I was came across the transgender and the health issues, the elderly transgender. So new type of the new addition to the literatures are coming, which are very important for our development. And thank you very much. So I will request our first speaker, Dr. Dilshe Kale, and she will discuss on the transformative journey or the impact of the teachers on the lives of the women. Dilshe madam?
Hello all.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think. Okay. Hello all. Again, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for all of us. May I share the screen? Is it possible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll try. Just a minute. Yeah, I think now it's okay. Now, can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
I think yes. Okay. So, hello again. I am Dr. Dilşah Kalay, and I am from Turkey. And I have been working as a women teacher for 15 years. And I am going to today talk about the transformative role of women teachers. So, can you see the changes of the pages now? Is it possible? Because I cannot see, I don't have double screen.
No, ma'am.
Can you see the screen? Yeah.
You can go
So we're
on your page.
We're on the page of introduction now. Can you see the screen?
No, it's
No,
not.
ma'am. It's not visible.
Now? Yeah, now? I think yes. What is the problem now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hello, madam.
Yes.
Try again, please.
Now. Yeah, now it's okay. All right. So, today we're going to talk about the transformative role of women teachers in education. So, I, first of all, want to congratulate all of us for the Women's Day. And I'm really happy to be here for this event to congratulate this International Day. And today I'm going to talk about women teachers. So we know that women teachers are essential to the educational system because they shape the minds of future generations. We cannot ignore their contributions, and as they inspire, they mentor, and they empower our students. We do this. So with this presentation, we will explore the unique role of women teachers and their impact on education and society, and some challenges, unfortunately, we face, and the way forward. Yeah. When we have a look at women teachers with a global perspective, according to the statistics, women make up over 70% of the global teaching workforce in primary education, according to UNESCO. So in terms of the secondary education, their representation is lower, especially in STEM fields. When we have a look at the regional insights, in developing countries, women teachers are often the first point of contact for girls entering the education. In vice versa, in the developed nations, women teachers are generally leading the efforts to integrate inclusivity and diversity in classrooms. So overall, with this global perspective, we can say that women teachers are the backbone of the education system in the worldwide. Now, yeah. When we have a look at the unique role of women teachers, they are role models. Of course, I can share the slides, but I don't have the WhatsApp group, but I can share the slide with the editors, and they can share it with you if you want. So when we have a look at the unique role of women teachers, they are role models, especially for the girls, for the little
Hello,
students.
madam.
Women
Hello,
teachers
madam.
is, yeah.
Please try to share your slide again.
Again?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
It's visible.
Visible.
It
Yes,
was visible, I think, but
yeah, it was visible.
right?
Visible. Is it
Okay.
visible?
Now? Yeah.
Yes.
Is it okay now?
Now okay, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So we cannot ignore the fact that women teachers inspire young girls to dream big and pursue their education. And they also challenge traditional gender roles by showing or demonstrating leadership and independence. When we have a look at the unique role of women teachers in terms of empathy and understanding, women teachers are often bring a nurturing approach like a mother to education, and they foster emotional well-being. As we know, being a mother is so natural. So being a women teacher resembles to, I think, being a mother. So in terms of the educational field, they foster the emotional well-beings of the students. And also they promote equality. They actively address gender biases in classrooms, creating a safe space for all students. When we go on with the transforming the education process, with the women teachers, in terms of student-centered learning, women teachers are more likely to adopt inclusive teaching methods that cater to diverse learning needs. In terms of lifelong skills, they build lifelong learning skills. They emphasize critical thinking, collaboration, and empathy in their teaching. When we have a look at the academic outcomes, academic roles of the teachers, according to the studies present in the literature, they show that classrooms led by women teachers generally have higher student engagement and better performance than classrooms with men teachers. I don't want to underscore men teachers, but today is the Women's Day. So when we have a look at the impact of women teachers on girls' education, they encourage enrollment, teachers, I mean, the presence of women teachers generally increase school enrollment rates of girls, especially in developing conservative societies. And in terms of success, student success and retention, with the girl students. Girls are more likely to stay in schools and succeed academically when taught by women teachers. And I think this is all, they all result from the fact that women resembles to their mother. In primary school, generally, the parents and also the students would like to be with women teachers because they are nurturing. They provide mother care. So this is so normal in education, I think. When we have a look at the role of women teachers in communities, women teachers advocate for girls' education. Often they affect families and communities to prioritize schooling for girls. And however, unfortunately, women teachers have many challenges in the educational field. In addition to the other problems, when we have a look at the pay gap, gender pay gap, unfortunately, women teachers often earn less than their male counterparts, even they have the same roles in the schools. This is something bad. And when we have a look at the leadership barriers, for example, although we are in Turkey, we have many problems in terms of leadership in our field. Despite their number, there are numerous number of teachers, women teachers in the academic field and also in teaching. However, women are underrepresented in leadership positions in education, because I think men feel that women cannot do the leader, they cannot be a good leader for a group of, let's say, teachers or group of, let's say, academics, etc. They cannot be proper examples of leaders. This is so unfortunate. When we have a look at the work-life balance, according to the societal expectations, there are many additional burdens on women. Like they make it harder for them to balance professional and personal responsibilities. Of course, women teachers are also mothers or wives at home, and there are many responsibilities waiting them at home. And when they are they have many problems balancing these responsibilities, professional responsibilities and personal responsibilities, I think. And this may something cause some problems, psychological problems to the woman. And the most important one is the lack of support in rural and under-resourced areas. Women teachers face safety concerns. They have problems with resources. They have limited professional development opportunities in those areas. Although they really would like to do that, they are really willing to develop themselves professionally. And these are the challenges we may face while teaching in the teaching field. So how are we going to break the barriers in education? There are some challenging stereotypes, like teachers break traditional gender norms by excelling in leadership and STEM education. And we can talk about also inspiring changes, like women teachers encourage students to question societal norms and embrace diversity. And we can also have a look at the community impact, like women teachers often lead initiatives to improve education access and quality in their communities. These may be the barriers that we can break in education. So we can have a look at some stories, little story. I'm not going to go in detail with these stories, but there are some stories of resilience in terms of women teachers. Like, for example, a women teacher in a rural area of, let's say, Turkey, may overcome some resistance, societal resistance to establish a school for girls, or a STEM educator who wants to inspire young girls to pursue their careers or in terms of science and technology and education. They may have some resilience as well, from parents, from the society, from administratives, etc. And also, I may talk about the final example, and a teacher using innovative methods to teach or to improve literacy rates in underreserved, like underdeveloped, let's say, communities, may have some resilience. So all these stories highlights that there is a transformative power of women educators in the educational field. So they are really important. They provide the power, generally more than the men, let's say, the power, the transformative power for the students, especially when we have a look at our gender, especially for girl students. So this is really important in the educational field. And when we have a look at the policy interventions to support women teachers, we should support our teachers in the field. So we need equal pay and equal opportunities in the field of education for our women teachers. Governments and institutions must ensure pay equity and leadership opportunities for women teachers. And in terms of professional development, we should provide training programs to enhance whatever skills they want to provide or develop, or for their career development. We should give all the opportunities to those women teachers. When we have a look at the workplace support, the government should provide policies to support work-life balance, like flexible schedules, childcare facilities, help with, again, the payment for, again, childcare issues, etc., for the women teachers, so that they can work. And in terms of safety, health, and resources, we should ensure safe working environments and access to teaching resources in especially the rural areas of the communities. What are we going to do in the future? So the way forward, we as women teachers are expecting contributions, like celebrating the achievements of women teachers and their impact on education. We need this. We need this motivation. We need this support, and we need the investment in growth. Like, we need allocated resources for women teacher professional and personal development. And also gender equality. This is really essential in the field, in the educational field. We should encourage more women working women in the field to lead the education sector. And for the global, which is good for today, global collaboration, we should share our best practices and success stories, and in order to inspire the change worldwide. We should affect each other all around the world in terms of women teachers in the field. So overall, we know that, of course, women are important in our lives. Women teachers are really important in the educational field. But women teachers are not just educators. They are change makers who shape the future of our children, our students, ourselves, They are change makers. They contribute to education and society. So these contributions should be recognized and please celebrated. And by supporting and empowering women teachers, we can create a more inclusive and equitable world all around, all in all the countries, I think. So that's the end of my presentation and my talk. I hope you like it. If you have any questions, I am ready to answer.
Thank you, ma'am. We will take question answers once we complete with our second speaker. And thank you for giving
Okay.
us such a wonderful presentation. I hope you will be with us and we can continue with the celebration of our Women's Day session. Thank you, ma'am.
Of course.
Ma'am, there will be questions after the second speaker.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think they have liked it very much. You can see the response on the screen. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So I request Dr. Deepika Chakraborty, Deepikanta Chakraborty, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, you can start your presentation.
Yeah. I hope I'm audible to all. First of all, it's my pleasure to be invited as a speaker here. At the same time, I'm very much hesitant seeing Madam Patel here because she's a mountain-like figure to me, believe me, and I don't have much work here in the field because whenever we search in India, feminism, women empowerment, anything related to women, the first name comes is, for me, it's Madam Patel. So, Madam, please forgive me if I say anything wrong. Please, I'm here to learn.
So am I. I am also here to learn.
The theme of the conference, theme of the webinar, is I found a bit subaltern in sense because when I read the line "women empowerment is not confined to the workplace and political spheres, it extends to the home and community." Mostly, if I can see, defining women empowerment from a holistic perspective, mostly bringing the underprivileged or socially subordinated section, if I can see, it is the theme of this presentation webinar. So with that, I'm starting. Okay, International Women's Day 2025 campaign theme is Accelerate Action. At the current rate of progress, according to the World Economic Forum, if we go with this, pace of women development or, women empowerment, it will take until, at least 5 generations from now to reach to the goal of gender parity. It's according to the World Economic Forum data. And if I come to this one, United Nations theme, that this year theme is for all women and girls, rights, equalities, empowerment. So it's for all, definitely, and it is going with the theme of the, event also. Before I start with this, I just wanted to know few things or ask few things. What is the status of women in our progressive India? How does the progressive or Vikshit Bharat or developed India see the progress and growth and women empowerment? So if I can use it, developed India, because our president of India will be inaugurating the event Developed India with Nari Shakti. So how do you define Nari Shakti? Let's go to the statistics. We have women in leadership, if I can discuss. The cabinet minister, I think we have 2 cabinet minister, Madam Sitaraman and Annapurna Devi. We do not have any minister of states, but definitely 5 minister of states with independent charges in our council of ministers. So if we go with that data, that is, we have 9.4% of 9.4% of women are participating in the leadership position in India, which is women in politics. Let's come to the Global Gender Gap Report.
Deepikanta madam. Hello.
Yes.
Madam, are you sharing your screen?
No, no, no.
Okay.
I'm very sorry for that. I couldn't, prepare the PPT. So in 2024 Global Gender Gap Report, India ranked, I think, 129th out of 146 countries, which was in the bottom 20 level. And this means that India has closed only 64.1% of its gender gap. So again, coming back to the question, how do we see the gender gap? How do we see women empowerment? How do we celebrate, the contribution of women in our country? If I can take the domestic workers in India, I have only one paper that is on, impact of COVID-19 on female migrants in India. While working on that paper, I didn't find any data, any registration of female workers in the unorganized sectors of the country, unfortunately. So if I discuss the domestic workers, mostly the women are considered as the domestic workers in India. And domestic workers continue to be amongst the most vulnerable section in the society, the culturally, socially subordinated groups in the unorganized sectors in India. According to the report, 20 to 80 million domestic workers in the country we are having. In February 2022, the Montfort Social Institute, Union Telangana State, and the Domestic Workers Federation Andhra Pradesh carried out a socio-economic survey on the domestic workers on the two respective states. And this survey actually covered 1,400, their sample size is 400 domestic workers from small and large towns of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. So, what are the issues? Before that, as I have seen the theme also, storytelling and all, I would like to state something. When I came to my in-laws family, I found that they are from so-called upper class section of the society, so-called Brahmin section of the society, those who can relate with that. So domestic workers are considered as untouchable to the middle class groups, mostly in India. So I have seen that though she is serving, if I can, she is my domestic help. And I found initially that she is considered as an untouchable in my family. She is doing everything. She is the helping hand. She's, helping my, if I can say, mother-in-law to prepare food and everything, but she is not allowed to touch the, enter to the kitchen. And she is served food in a very weird way. She is sitting outside and she is offered tea, and her cups and all her utensils are kept aside. It cannot be mixed up with others. So, this is the treatment often, the domestic workers in India face. Mostly the issues they're facing, they're not having written contract with their employers, because we employ them, but there is no written contract. Okay. And there is no registration process also in India. In India, there is no registration process, so that domestic, women can demand or have their own, demand for their rights and can understand. Domestic workers are facing workplace harassment, as I already mentioned. Okay, at my place, I have seen this kind of discrimination. And when we go outside, because I give lecture, and as Madam my first teacher said, women are, the good teachers and all. And in my class, I am very much into rights of the women and all. But at my place, I am seeing this kind of discrimination, and sometimes I'm helpless to respond. I'm not responding, structural barriers are there. So domestic workers who have experienced a lot of, workplace harassment, I would say, sometimes it is verbal abuse, sometimes it is physical abuse in different sense. Physical abuse, sometimes they are raped, sometimes they are molested, Sometimes they are physically tortured, if not raped and all. They are physically tortured, they are beaten up and like this. And verbally they are abused because we have a mindset they are uneducated, they are illiterate, whatever we'll say, they are bound to do that. We often make them working, washing clothes. This is very common, but if I can say cleaning utensils, cleaning the drains and all this, we are making them bound to do so because they don't have any written contract with the employers. Okay, what are the terms and conditions of my work? They are subject to, they are not getting any leave. Domestic workers, mostly they are not getting any leave. And, hence no menstrual leave or any leave that we as a women and female employers, we are employees, we are getting from our employers, the domestic workers are not getting. So it is, I find it the harassment, I find it denial of human rights, basic human rights. Domestic workers are not sometimes, because I'm from Tripura, and one domestic worker, she was accused of stealing some jewelry of the owner, and she was initially harassed. At the same time, witch hunting is often, we can say, in our state. So she was accused as a witch also, and she was burnt alive. So this kind of incidents are often, we can see, we experience in our state, not only state, in the remotest part of the country, if not Tripura, also in different part of the country, we say this kind of treatments. They are not getting any social security. Women are getting maternity leave, women are getting a lot of leaves, casual leaves, we are getting, CCL, childcare leave, many other leaves we are getting. But this women, they are the helping hand, and we cannot, a few days back I was seeing one advertisement, when the husband was saying the wife, what do you expect, or whom do you love the most? And she said, my maid, because I can live without you but not without my maid. So if this is the thing, if we are so dependent on our maids, then domestic workers are still, the subaltern groups, the unrecognized groups, and they are socially excluded groups, if I can use it, because social inclusion exclusion is a separate discipline. So we need to study, the social scientists, we need to study from that perspective also. Okay, domestic workers, the most comprehensive idea, the most likely that we should include them in the societal mainstream, but they are actually the excluded, culturally excluded group. And they are subject to harassment, they are subject to torture, physical, mental torture as well. So definitely going with the theme, I find what are the, if these are challenges the domestic worker are facing, then what is the theme for women development? What is the theme of your conference, that we need to, the idea of development is comprehensive and we need to go excel together? If it's so, what is the place, what is the role of government, what is the, where, the domestic workers lying in the public policy framework of India? In that case, we need to think about this subaltern group, socially excluded group. We need to bring them in the mainstream. We need to, what are the recommendations I can give in this regard? Here, these are the problems I stated. These are the problems, problems women, all the women are facing in life, mostly the domestic workers. And what are the recommendation, or what are the solution to those problems? I find definitely, first of all, we need awareness campaign or awareness events by various institutions, might be the school, might be the various educational institution. We need to start with this kind of, policies, awareness policies, so that, at the very grassroots level, at the panchayat level, at the municipality level, this kind of treatment or policy can be taken by the government. At the same time, we can suggest a proper registration process of these domestic workers must be there. If the government is not taking any initiative, that NGOs should come, they should also take, consideration of the condition of the domestic workers. With that, I will end my speech here.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for expressing the oppressions that the women are going through. And I believe that the oppressions are not only about the woman gender, but also across the class, caste, religion.
It's
So
all about our family mindset, madam.
family mindset and
As
also
I told you, it's a
social
structural
hierarchy.
barrier. I couldn't stop this practice in my family.
Social hierarchy.
Yes.
And I think we always see the government's policy and it always focus on the women's empowerment with the financial freedom, but there is so much more to it. Means what is
Social
about the choice, what is about the agency. Means if the woman is given the compulsion, she is doing the work. She has not the choice to select which of the work she is doing. So basically and also there are so much historical exploitations that we can see in the narratives as well. So thank you, ma'am, and obviously it is within the family. Vibhuti ma'am, please make your observations on the speakers.
I think both the presentations were extremely insightful and they discussed the universality of the problem, whether it is a case study of Turkey or India. The problems are universal that we can realize. We are at the fourth stage currently, like it is said that this is the fourth stage of feminist movement. But what we have seen is that gender politics all over the world, either in a post-colonial societies or in the global north, is shaped by a very important and complex problems which we are facing now in the current 21st century knowledge economy. What we saw was that gender politics changed drastically due to shift from mass mobilization and the grassroots activism we had during the 70s and 80s. And now proactive participation of women in decision-making bodies is happening all over the world. Though there are class ceilings, though there are discrimination, as the case study of Turkey showed, but women's movement has challenged age-old patriarchy and campaigned to achieve series of legal reforms with respect to domestic violence, sexual violence, workplace harassment, maternity benefits. Gender budgeting have become part of official agenda of more than 100 countries, whether it is done by the ministry or wherever there is ethnic tension, it is the army which does it, UN peacekeeping forces, all of them are trained. The intersectionality of gender politics with caste, class, religion, ethnicity, color, geographic location, which and also bringing in the discourses of LGBTQIA communities, that means going beyond gender binary, that is also very important. And queer politics has also become dominant. There is a tremendous backlash, as we saw the recent directive and the diktat by the American president to the UN that don't talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. That itself shows the patriarchal anxiety that we have, so powerful these discourses have become. So women's rights movement, women's studies scholars have worked in unison and connected they are connected in this long journey, because feminism talks about not only theory but praxis. Praxis is different from practice. Practice is just action that you take up, but the praxis is governed by ideology. So it is very important to understand the current challenges in today's context, and I think these two presentations have provided a much food for thought for us, because the current stage of gender politics which is informed by third and fourth wave, which is a post-structuralist understanding, as our moderator madam said. It is not only the economic independence but also the social norms, the cultural practices, tradition, historical legacy. They also play a very important role. How patriarchy controls sexuality, fertility, labor, double standard of sexual morality. To understand all that, we need to have our roots in literature, politics, art, cultural criticism, history, sociology, and actual grounded work that we are doing, observing as citizens, as researchers, and as women. So our claim is that women, to define feminism for ourselves, we need to incorporate our own identities. Identities play a very important role. And the gender politics encompasses both at a macro level, micro level, meso level. And we saw that we have experienced, like my generation has experienced. I was inspired by the first wave feminism all over the world, where the social reformers, they challenged very, very abhorrent and barbaric practices such as child marriage or widow burning or female infanticide, which is prevalent in so many African and Asian countries. You had a very machismo kind of ideology, which results in gender-based violence in Latin America. And the new songs which the young women have come up with, against rape, against sexual violence, as a tool used to demoralize, humiliate, degrade women, that has also been taken up by young women so bravely. So that we need to understand, and we get our strength, we get our inspiration from this kind of protests which are happening world over. In the second wave feminism, where I was an active participant, this started in the 1970s, we saw that not only we can't be passive observant of what is happening. We have to fight against discrimination, injustice, and exploitation. And in whichever field you are in, whether you are a teacher, or whether you are a worker, or whether you are a researcher, or whether you are a housewife, homemaker. And now the third wave perspective, which talks about those who were earlier were not given any space. They were not given mic. They were not given any voice. They are Dalit women, tribal women, women of color. In post-colonial societies, they are not just an object of victim. They are shaping their own destiny. And the new wisdom that came, that we have to fight collectively. There is a strength in number. Women, Latin American feminists taught us that women united will never be defeated. Another thing which you understand, that the question of sexuality, your generation, the younger generation, is much more at ease with their sexuality. My generation is rigid because we grew up under tremendous patriarchal control over what is good and what is bad, and what is a ideal woman and a dutiful daughter and what is not. As compared to that, you have a far more progressive and liberal way of looking at sexuality. Feminism and ecological movement is a very important concern which has emerged in the 21st century with the discourse on climate change. Climate change discourse was earlier dominated solely by men. It is the women's pressure, eco-feminist pressure, which has now brought in gender concerns and the northeastern states have done more of women from those states have done more work on question of what kind of disasters, like natural disasters, man-made disaster can do to women. Another very important concern on which we have, like our countries are far more progressive than what we saw 3 years back, like taking away of a right to abortion of American women. So many countries in which abortion is criminalized. So many women are imprisoned. They are tried for using their reproductive right. And reproductive rights, the new reproductive technologies, which have been also very grossly misused in terms of sex determination test in countries, in the whole of Asian countries, especially in South Asia. Girl child has been eliminated in her mother's womb, and that has become a common concern of women in several Asian countries. All of you, our Mr. Chakrabarti and previous speakers also talked about the most disastrous occupational hazard of the 21st century, which is the sexual harassment at workplace. More and more women are entering all the spheres of economy, all the sectors of society, and they are also facing a tremendous backlash in terms of sexual violence. So workplace safety, creating structures, systems, laws, policies, and also pressure from below. Don't suffer in silence. Silence is not a virtue. You have to speak out. And I respect that lady from France whose husband had engineered her rape by hundreds of men over last 20 years, she said she would not, she wanted to go public. She said, why should I be ashamed? Those who have done such shameful acts should be ashamed. And she went, and after that, 100 survivors of child sexual abuse, now they are adult, but they were sexually abused when they were children by a medical officer, they have come out. So these are some of the very courageous act that one sees in the current generation, no? So another very important thing which was always put under the carpet and neglected and invisibilized is differently abled people. They have also now unionized. They are also writing. They are extremely articulate. They have their spokesperson, both men and women in disability movement, and they have challenged some of the age-old notions about disabled person being treated as a piece of furniture. Hitler's soldiers used to kill disabled person with polio were killed by the Nazi soldier, and this kind of a sectarian way of looking at human existence has been challenged, and that is why we can see totally new agenda emerging so far as the health movement, and lot of multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary discourses are happening, which is a very humbling and impact, whether it is an intergenerational learning or interdisciplinary learning. I think it is the more you become humble, the more democratic you become, and that is very important. And the last but not the least, the most important current concern is the feminist interventions in the war zones. We have seen traditional wars are returning back. Currently, there are 43 geographical locations where the wars are happening. Ukraine war and Gaza, the Israel-Palestine war have been highly reported in the media, but there have been so many wars which are happening in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and we need to have our transnational solidarity. And United Nations Security Council has come up with the Women, Peace and Security agenda, because every time there is a war, the people who suffer the most are women. And that's why women also, way back in 1910, when 8th March was declared as International Women's Day, that time they said that we don't want bullet, we want bread. We don't want tanks, we want milk for our children. So we don't want war. And when you talk about the world peace, we also need to talk about the peace begins from home. So we are against the territorial war by the nation states. We are also against any form of gender-based violence in our country. And so currently it is, in a way, it is a very encouraging that 107 countries have accepted National Action Plan for the WPS agenda, which is under the 1325 section of United Nations Security Council. So I think there's some, in a way, like we are moving one step ahead. Sometimes we are going 2 steps backward. But I think it is very important that we don't become complacent about our achievement, because whatever we have achieved with our sweat and blood, we remember those suffragist women in the 19th century who were standing for hours together with the placard for universal franchise in the extremely harsh cold, and even in the midst of snowing. Gandhiji got inspired by those women that they are fighting for their rights without being violent, and the same thing was used in our country. We need to learn from those 15 women freedom fighters who played a very important role in coming up with one of the world's most progressive Constitution of India, along with Baba Saheb Ambedkar. We also have so many other, the solidarity that we need to do earlier, the whole moral way of looking at sex work that has gone, feminist solidarity with the sex workers, transgender survivors of sexual violence, has expanded our horizon of sensitivity and sensibility. The LGBTQIA movement has humbled us by becoming more inclusive of diversity and plurality. We may wear different races, we may speak different languages, our food habits may be different, we may have a different life choices, but we all are human beings. We need to respect each other, and we need to understand the conflict resolution not by violence means, but by discussion and debate. And that's why I congratulate the Global Publishing House for organizing such global dialogue. I would like to end with two important one is a quotation and one other one is a verse of my favorite personalities. One is Malala Yousafzai. She's an incarnation of peace. She was attacked as a teenager for going to the school in Afghanistan. And she says that I raise up my voice, and I quote, not so that not so I can shout, but so that those without a voice can be heard. Your voice is your superpower. Use it not just for yourself, but to amplify the whispers of the unheard. Imagine the change you can spark by lending your strength to those who need it the most. You may, and second one is a very, very important poem and which has changed the lives of millions of women all over the world. That is by Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou was a survivor of child sexual abuse, extremely brutal child sexual abuse by her stepfather when her mother left. And she, so much so that she had lost her speech. It was a caring teacher, and that's why I like the presentation by our sister from Turkey who talked about the role of teachers in empowerment of human beings. We need both. We need a very, very responsible man, women, and all the genders. The whole gender spectrum has to be humanized, and teachers can play very important role. So Maya Angelou's teacher, she really counseled her for many, many years. Finally, she started speaking, and she said what was happening in her life. Her father was in prison, but Maya Angelou was very reflexive. She said that why was my father like that? Okay, he provided for me, but at the same time, he sexually exploited. Well, who made him like this? It is the social environment where he saw, as a child, he internalized misogyny, cruelty all around, and that is why he became like that. That means we need to change the society. We need to change the structures and systems which generate this kind of extremely toxic patriarchy, which has impunity. So, and even against such horrible onslaught on her body and psyche, Maya Angelou says, and I quote, "Still I rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter and twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Don't my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Because I walk like I have got oil wells pumping in my living room, just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it with awful heart, cause I laugh like I have got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I have got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history of shame, I rise. Up from the past that is rooted in pain, I rise. I am black ocean, leaping and wide, belling and swelling, I bear in tide. Leaving behind nights of terror, fear, I rise. Onto the daybreak that is wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors crave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for a wonderful speech. And I know this change is not an overnight change, and this is a generations we have to keep the struggle going on. And thanks to Professor Vibhuti ma'am and to our speakers, Dilsha Kale and Deepikanto Chakraborty madam. And the floor is open for question answer. If you have any questions, please write it down in the chat box. I can see question for Dilsha ma'am in the chat box. How can students and young people bring women's empowerment from their own homes? What is your message to the youth who want to fight for gender equality?
May I? I think it's for me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for young men, they should help us for respecting life. They should help us in respecting our job, our responsibilities as women at home and at school, let's say, or in the work. They should help us. For young women, please do not give up getting educated, first of all, and do not give up uh, fighting for your independence. Sometimes you will be all alone. However, finally, in the end, you will reach your aim, you will reach your purpose, you will be wherever you want if you go on, if you insist on your goal. So, and also the other important here thing is we should help each other. We cannot be all alone. We cannot reach gender equality all alone. Young men should help us because they will have wives, they will have daughters in the future, and what should happen to their wives or their daughters will happen to the other women as well. So we cannot be all alone.
If you have any more questions, please ask.
We need more and more Dr. Arijit Chakrabortis who would create democratic platform for interaction and learning from the best practices of each other, because it always, like when we amplify the best practices, the world changes. Thank you. Very good question. Yeah. Thank you, Dilsha Kalani. Yeah, very good.
There is one more about confidence, I think. How the confidence, girls' confidence should be boosted. You should practice a lot. For example, when I'm a good teacher now, I can say this, but I was practicing with a mirror when I was a student at university. I was like teaching myself in the mirror. So it raised my confidence. It helps you. That a little clue for you.
Yeah.
Vibhuti ma'am, I think you have
I
one.
think, yeah. The
Women's-
women sacrifice their own lives. Yeah. Do you want to ask or should I read it?
For families without asking for recognition, what can we do as a youth to thank and empower the women around us?
I think the kind of work which Men Against Violence and Abuse are doing in India, and also Purush Uvacha is another group which talks about deconstructing masculinity and convincing men that patriarchy is not only oppressive for women. Patriarchy is oppressive for any decent human being, including and the gender minorities. So first of all, realization of your own privilege and understanding the disabilities and the lack of access that you are facing. In our organization, we work in 20 bastis in Mumbai, and we start when the boys started attending our camps, they were the ones who fought with their fathers, saying that my sister will not get married at the age of 12, because here in Bombay, as soon as she would get menstruation, they would take her to village and marry her off. So these were the boys who negotiated that my sister is doing so well in mathematics. Please allow her to study. They said if she studies, she'll become uncontrollable. They said, no, look at the didis who teach us. They are not uncontrollable. They are also looking after their parents. So I think more and more, and whole history of 19th century social reform movement shows that it was the sensitive men who were committed and who accepted equality as their goal. They were the ones who brought change. So I think it's a very important thing that you do. Delhi, there is a group called Mustbol, Mustbol. I request all of you to go through their website. These are the children of Delhi University boys. They say that in a day-to-day life, how can we challenge gender stereotypes? So he said, Mama, today you are not going to make breakfast. I will be making breakfast. You just sit and read newspaper. And this boy is making breakfast and serving it to a mother. It's a small gesture, but it challenges the stereotype in a joint family where they say that boys have to just be outdoor and women have to do a housework. Similarly, there were children, students in Bombay. We have a very overcrowded trains during peak hours. There were some predators who were targeting only women's compartment. The moment the train would come, because train stops only for 30 seconds, you have to get in and out, and they would molest women so badly. So these four boys of a college, what they did, they just used their smartphone. They took the photographs of these men who were behaving in such a nasty way. They took a printout, put up photographs in all the railway stations. These are the predators. Watch out. And so naming and shaming they did. It was a small gesture which they did, but then the women also got confidence that we should not suffer silently. We should also come out, stick up. We should also fight against it. So I think this way, challenging gender stereotypes in a day-to-day life. Like in my school, it was always compulsory for girls to go for tailoring and boys to go for carpentry and vocational issue. Now, in so many schools, when women say we want to have a vocational education, boys should support. They should never say that no, technology is only our domain and you have to just do only cooking and tailoring. So wherever you see, because every issue can provide gender. Once you start seeing things from gender's lens, gender ke chashme se, from the gender lens, if you start seeing things, and if you find any discrimination in your own life, with your sister, at the workplace, in the neighborhood, you can politely also bring this change. So change begins from us. That's what even Mahatma Gandhi said, that if you want to change the world, you need to change yourself. So I think it is possible to change the gender stereotypes and have a world, and it will be very liberating also, because if women can't get liberation without human liberation, and human liberation cannot arrive unless 50% of the population is liberated. So I think it is possible to you start your group, discuss with people. In fact, the work which is done by an organization called Akshara, Dharavi is the largest. They call it slum. We don't call it slum. We call it Basti, informal settlement of Asia. The boys, young teenage boys, they would just target girls and sexually harass them. The organization asked this boy, "Why do you do that? Why are you doing this?" So they said, "Oh, for time pass." They said, "But you can do time pass by singing, by dancing, by playing instrument, by doing good work for the people." And that's how the dialogue started. Now the same boys, once they were convinced that it is not funny to behave in such a way with the women, they became the change agent. They started telling other children that this kind of a harassment, street harassment, is not done. There are so many nice ways of behaving with human being, so that people will respect you. They will not fear you. They will not hate you. No. So I think main thing is to reach out to the people and have a dialogue. And we, from the teaching fraternity, we always do that. Power of pen is mightier than power of sword. Yeah.
Yes, women's problem is not only about women's problem. All the men have to involve to solve the problem. So I will just read few questions as we are running short of time. So one of you have written about why can't we celebrate Transgender Day. We have Transgenders Day in India. We celebrate Transgender Day on 14th April. It started from 2014 when they got this recognition as the other gender or transgender, and the International Transgender is we celebrate it on 31st March. Okay, so there is one.
And throughout the month of June, so many workshops, seminars, then training programs, capacity building programs are organized because that whole month is there for countering the wrong belief and the myths about transgender community. So that is a good initiative. It has happened only after 2019, after we got the act passed in the Parliament of India, and the UN also gave the directive. But
there's protection.
It has started.
One question I will read. What are some self-care practices that can help women prioritize their own well-being and resilience?
So Deepikanta madam, can you answer?
Deepikanta ma'am?
Unmute.
Can I have the question again?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
What are some of the self-care practices that women can follow to prioritize their mental health?
First of all, I would like to say that I am busy. This is the most, you know, thing or the word or line we use generally, because if I don't want to talk to you or somebody, we use I am busy. Actually, no one is busy. So we often give this task to ourselves that I need to go for care work. It's my personal experience, ma'am. I'm 6 months pregnant today,
Yeah.
and I'm going university. I'm controller of exam in my university,
Oh my God.
and throughout the week, today also I came just from university. Now only I have another meeting, and tomorrow is a Sunday, and I'm going for that. So what is the time? Where is my time for self-care? But before sleeping or finding it, because it gives you mental, and it distresses you mentally. So in that case, I'm a controller. I'm a daughter-in-law. I'm a daughter of somebody. I'm the wife of somebody. Most importantly, I'm the teacher. As Madam said, I personally liked the first speaker's one because I'm also a teacher. And the first message I saw in my WhatsApp today, one of my students from LLM, she said, "Ke, you are my inspiration. I want to be like you," like that. It made my day. Ke, a women like me can be an inspiration for somebody. I was so surprised and at the same time happy also. But definitely, despite all our busy schedule, no one is that much busy to, say that I am not able to take care of myself. Despite all our work, we'll have to think, we'll have to look at the mirror, we'll have to understand whether I'm good. Don't put makeup. I'm not telling you putting makeup, but doing something that gives, for example, gardening, I do that. Or making anything that will distress you. I think this is, or you read books. You read books, sometimes it distresses us. So anything we are doing, we are loving to do, we'll have to do it. It's not about cooking, because cooking also distresses us. This is one of the cleaning utensil is also good for us, for mental health. In that case, ma'am, I would suggest doing anything that you love can make you happy.
Very important. Very, very important. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Dilsha, ma'am, you have one question that many women are still afraid to speak up for their rights due to social pressure. How can society make women feel safe and confident to raise their voice? Do you think religion and culture become a hurdle in women's empowerment, or can they support it? So many questions.
Yeah, it's not, yeah, a very difficult question. It is not easy to change the society. And of course, religion and culture affects these kinds of norms. For example, in Turkey, there are different norms in the east part and different norms in the west part. So even within a country, there are some differences. So these kinds of pressures, especially on women, we cannot. It's not easy to handle with these. We cannot solve these problems easily. We need time, and we need to be together. And also, the political issues, they have also something to do, but we cannot solve that problem as well. It is not easy to do that. However, I can just suggest that within the education, within all your countries, all around what you have, you can try to be uh, resistant against independence. Like you should just save your independence yourself as women. However, we should need men as well. They should understand us. They should see what we are doing here. They should share our responsibilities within the society as well. So it is not easy to solve those stereotypes. However, we will. I believe in this. We will someday.
Yes, and there is also Muhammad Bilal, one example. You can read one recently published book, Good Women Do Not Inherit Land. So we have land rights, equal land rights as our brother,
Demand.
2005 onwards, Hindu Succession Act. But if you see the data, means she is saying that the women are taught to be like this or constructed like this, that we do not ask for land. Even if you take the example, we cannot ask like to my father that give me 500 rupees. He will ask me why, what is the purpose of using this money. So he will ask me several questions. So even this, if I go and ask for land, so obviously that you are going against the culture, you are so disgrace to the society. So this is also one narrative to why we cannot enjoy the rights or constitutional rights properly. Okay.
And not only that, that women who have exercised their right, especially the widows and single women, they have been dubbed as witches and killed. So witch killing is a new, it is not the historical legacy. It is whole thing is about the politics of land. Land is the most prized possession in today's commercial, because it's the most expensive thing. And when women demand their share, then they get witch hunted. That is also very important. Currently, 14 states have a witch hunting. Only 2 states have a law: Assam and Chhattisgarh, and Odisha and Chhattisgarh. Jharkhand, they have come up with the law. So the newer challenges that a modern form of slavery and modern form of surveillance and control are also emerging, and we need to constantly keep our eyes and ears open so that we can come up with a strategy to deal with the new problems that we encounter.
I think we are done with questions, and there are some question about which country, in your opinion, is making the best progress in women's empowerment. Is there any particular country, madam?
I would not say that, because otherwise we will have to keep the 500 years of slavery and 200 years of colonization of Asia, Africa, and Latin America under the carpet. Because all these indicators, they are evolved by the white man who always got the privileges of their race and class. So I would say that currently the resilience which the women's movement in the post-colonial society is building, I have more respect for that. Because even though the so-called progressive cradle of liberty and this thing, the kind of statement America is making these days, do you think that whatever they had achieved over the last 200 years is getting wiped out? So I think most important thing is to understand the political economy and the structure instead of getting into the yardstick. In fact, they were calling Tibet as the number one in happiness index. You should ask women of Tibet. I was in a meeting of SAARC countries where this young woman, she said it's the highest domestic violence. Alcoholism and domestic violence is very high in Tibet. How do you give it a first rank? That means women were not interviewed in that yardstick, no? So it also this kind of mechanical way of comparing different countries and one-upmanship, no, that suits neoliberalism. But I think we should not buy that. We should go by what is happening at a grounded level and how the communities and societies and collectives are responding to the challenges that they are facing.
Okay, Rakesh, those women who are illiterate and do not aware of the rights, so there are many visits from the government and non-governmental agencies to make them aware of their rights. And if you see, there are many women come to check if we are taking the vaccines, how many child we have. So this kind of awareness the government and non-government organizations are conducting from time to time. Another question I saw, how can we change the mindset? So we cannot we cannot change the mindset today or tomorrow. Okay, so if we start changing our mindset, or 2 or 3 people will get inspired by us, so all our sacrifices will result after maybe 30-40 years. Same those who have started the revolution, February Revolution in Russia, the working class revolution, and the fruits we are enjoying, they did not enjoy that. So even those sacrifices we will make, we will not enjoy the things or the rights we want, but our future generation will surely enjoy it. Okay, I think we are done with the questions. And Arijit sir, Rahul Mishra sir, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
I'm audible?
Thank you.
Yes.
I think there is some few questions more.
Yeah, where are they? In the chat box?
Yes, I think.
Yeah, there are. How we can be aware of rural areas women, and this is they are not. See, there is a myth that women in rural area are not knowledgeable. Let us differentiate between literacy and knowledge. You may be literate and have a very extremely uh, conservative or extremely sectarian views. Uh, that's what happened. Like when we had a conference, we asked all these rural women to do dancing, and there was a session on planning and public policy making,
Yes,
and
yes.
they just rebutted. They said, "What nonsense you are taking? Just because you have degree in economics, you think you know planning? We know how the employment guarantee schemes are operated. What kind of conditionality we have to face for food for work program." So I think the respecting the knowledge, and that is what in the climate change discourse also women from the agrarian sector are saying, that respect collective wisdom of women. We living in the forest, we doing cultivation. For food and agricultural organization has also acknowledged that the food sovereignty and food security of the globe is in the hands of women in subsistence sector. The moment you get cash, man switch to commercial agriculture. It is the women who are providing us grain and fruits and vegetables. So we need to learn, give shed our middle class biases, that if you just don't have literacy, and what do you mean by literacy? I know English, Hindi and Gujarati. Send me to Tamil Nadu in rural area, I would not know. They will think I am illiterate because I don't know Tamil. Everything is relative, no, in a globalized world. So let us think about lifelong learning and learning from each other. Experiential learning is very, very important, and which women in rural areas have. In fact, all these the educated engineers and doctors and town planners and all, they sit in the city, and keeping their reality in mind, they implement the schemes. I went for a watershed development departments, engineers. They were pipeline engineers, environmental engineers, mechanical engineers, training on water issue, and they were talking that there is no need for having any special water to be provisioned by the state, because you get 1 rupee pouch in village. 1 rupee pouch, is 1 rupee pouch a solution to the water issue of rural people? These are the ideas coming from BTech and MTech engineers. Are they illiterate, or women in the rural area illiterate, who are asking for a tapped water or the water bodies or the rainwater harvesting in their own community? So I think the new way of thinking, where we also learn from the people. You go to the forest area. When I went to tribal area, they all were thinking I'm completely stupid, because nothing, I did not know about the flora, fauna, fruits, their lifespan of the tree, so many local customs I did not know. So you go with the understanding that I have to learn from you. No, so that is a more thing, instead of saying that rural women are illiterate and they don't know anything. They know their economy very well. We can share some of the new skills and technology that we have, and we also need to learn from their experiences. That is what the climate discourse has taught us, climate change. Unless you have women have leadership, representation and voice, we will not be able to have ecological solution on Mother Earth. Yeah.
Thank you. Arijit sir, you can wrap up
Yeah.
and give
Okay.
vote of
Okay. First of all, thank to all the dignitaries and chairman sir, chairman madam, Vibhuti madam, and also Shovini is the wonderful moderate, and Dr. Rahul Mishra sir is the joint convener of the program, and I would also I would like to also thank to the all participant, because we deal with the scholars. They are mainly research writers. The lectures and discussion will be helpful for them. The lectures will be a food for their think, and they can able to write more effectively and practically. it's very important to enrich their writing skill, to identify the issues, and also identify the solutions, and also they can try to explain the issues on the way. It's very important, because without the sensitizing programs, they cannot able to uplift their writing skills. It's very important for scholars also, as well as the students. But this program is mainly targeted to the scholars, because they are main flag bearer of truth. They should identify the facts and try to find out all the solutions. It will be helpful for scholars, as well as ultimately helpful for the society. So thank you to all, and thanks to participate the program, and to spend your valuable time with us. Thank you to all. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Arijit Chakraborty, for this initiative. It is really very, very morally and spiritually uplifting that man is taking initiative for such a democratic platform where we can have meaningful discussion and such a global participation from Africa, from Asia, so many countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
ma'am. You
Speakers.
did it very well. Yes, Sohini ji, you moderated it so well.
Thank-
Thank ma'am also. Yeah.
Means a lot.
Yeah.
Let's end.